Okay.
FYI. Live on YouTube, so. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
I can't wait till we can get back in person. I'm not digging these.
They're a little hard.
I do Zooms all day long, but it's just usually me and one other person. Welcome, Andy.
Hello, Andy.
Hi, everybody. It's been a long time.
Hey, Andy.
Hey, Morgan, when did you send the packet out?
On Friday?
That's what I thought, but I couldn't. All I got was the minutes.
You got the
Right.
minutes?
Well, maybe.
I didn't get those.
No, this is just
And
the
what's your cell
agenda.
number?
Say what?
I don't have your cell number in here.
Mine?
Yeah, you may not want to say it right now.
Andy, I
Okay.
texted it to you 2 days ago, remember?
Yes,
So it should
I
just
must
be in
not
my
have
text
posted it in
message to you.
here.
I can send it again, Andy.
Yeah, if you could do that. Oh, I've got Morgan's. Hold it, hold it, hold it. I can save you the time. I've got it.
Okay, good.
I just need to plug it in here. So-
Oh, sorry, Mayor, I'm adding you to the group just right now. Okay, there we go. Did you find the packet, Joe?
Was it just 3 pages?
Yes, it was.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I when I opened it, it didn't open right. So
Yeah, it was just the 3 pages. And then separately, I sent the water report that we're adopting or presenting tonight. I sent that separately. I forgot to add it to the packet, so I had to send that one out separately, but.
Okay, let's see if we got everybody on board. I see Jan, Diane, Joe. I'm looking for Brian. He looks like he's coming on, and I haven't seen, there's Matt. Okay. Just wanna
hey,
make-
Mayor, there's been multiple requests to do Pledge of Allegiance. Do you want to try to pull that off?
I'd ask you to try it since you got a flag in front. If we do that, I would ask you, everyone, to stand and give us a Pledge of Allegiance after Joe Paul leads us in a Pledge of Allegiance, after he leads us in a moment of silence.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Just tell me when.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we got everybody on board. Just looking for Matt's smiling face. There he is. Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate you. I want to welcome everybody out today. This is the Royce City Council meeting. Date is May 19th, 2020. We're at 5:30 p.m. I want to just recognize in a roll call who we have with us. I see Jan Burrell's with us. Joe Paul is with us. I see, there you are, Brian. I see Oh, there you are, Diane, just checking to make sure. And Ann Jackson. Looks like we've got a full council today. Appreciate that. We've asked Councilmember Paul if you'd go ahead and lead us a moment of silence and then a pledge of allegiance. And when we do the pledge of allegiance, I ask, even though you may not have a flag, just please stand up.
All right,
Okay.
I'd like to welcome everybody at the council meeting. If you'll please join me in a moment of silence. All right, thank you. Then if you'll please stand, you can use the flag in the background of my picture for Pledge of Allegiance. All right, please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the
And
republic
to the
for
republic,
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
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 God,
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Got a couple of things we're doing tonight, so let's go ahead. We believe UDOT has another commitment. They're going to do a presentation, I believe, in Riverdale City tonight. And so we've invited them, but they would go ahead and provide a presentation to this city council first thing. And so who from UDOT is going to be doing the conversation?
Yeah, this is Scott Lucas. I guess we're all logged in under the Kent Jorgensen name, but I'm Scott Lucas with Lochner, and I'm going to co-present with Tom Roylance from UDOT. Is he on here?
Yeah, I'm here, Kent, or not, sorry, Kent, you're on Kent's phone. Sorry, Scott. Yeah, my
Okay.
name is, I'll go ahead if that's okay, Scott. I'll just introduce myself and the team and then probably kick it over to you, Scott. Maybe
Okay.
if you get maybe our slide presentation up in the meantime. But my name is Tom Roylance. I am the UDOT project manager for this very important project for Roy City. We're doing an environmental assessment for 5600 South. And we've met prior with the city. We've had several meetings with the city staff, and then we also presented to the council. It's probably fall of 2018. Our team has changed just a little bit since we presented last to a council meeting. Our PM now, you met Scott Lucas. He's our PM with Lochner. We've hired Lochner to do the study for us. So Scott, he's our PM. We have Dana Holmes. She's our environmental specialist. Gene Klein, he's working for doing our design work. And then we also have Kent Jorgensen. I know Kent's been coordinating with some of you to get on this council agenda today. But he helps with our public information. And so Scott, I don't know if you've got that ready to present. We've got a presentation we want to present to you.
Can you see the presentation?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you go to the next slide. And I was just going to talk about our focus area for our study. So the study includes 5600 South. It goes all the way on the west side, 3500 West. You'll see on this chart or this exhibit here that it goes a little bit further west. That's basically to tie into the existing roadway west of 3500. But the main focus is 3500 West and going all the way east and including I-15 interchange and into Hill Air Force Base. We've included portions of 1900 West to the south of 5600 and also going north to Riverdale Road to try to understand the traffic impacts that our study will have, or any options that we've come up with. Our study area does include the Riverdale Road interchange, and it does include Freeway Park Drive. So that's pretty much our study area. I'll let Scott get into probably a little bit more of the specifics of our study and probably the more interesting parts of what you guys are waiting to hear of kind of what we found with our study and some of the options we've looked at. So
Okay.
I'll turn the time over to you, Scott.
All righty. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So as Tom mentioned, we started a year and a half ago, and we developed the purpose and need for the project. And these are basically three important things that we built this study around: was to accommodate the 2050 traffic demand for the corridor that Tom just went over, the interchange at I-15 and their Riverdale Road. So to make sure we're meeting our traffic needs is a purpose of the project. We want to improve safety as far as improving safety along 5600 South and along in the interchange area. So that is another purpose and need of the project. Another project goal is to accommodate active transportation. We want to improve the facilities for bikes and pedestrians as we go through this corridor that we're discussing. So that's kind of the purpose need of the project.
Scott, I want to break in here. If the council has any questions or wants to make any comments as we go through, feel free to just chime in.
Thank you.
All right, so this is kind of the environmental process that we have started at the top of this slide. I mean, there was a concept to begin with, and then we entered in the environmental phase. But after the environmental is completed, then you go into final design and right-of-way acquisition and construction. But right now we're in the environmental phase. And so we conducted some scoping meetings in the summer of 18. We moved on to develop goals and objectives for the project, which I just talked to you about. Then went on to develop and screened alternatives. And then we went to analyze the impacts. So we did have, and we're kind of moving into the public hearing coming up here shortly. So, but back in developing alternatives and impacts, as we developed these alternatives, and we've met with you before, we kind of went through UDOT in the fall of 2019, had UDOT review, and they asked us to go back and look at the corridor and see if there's some things that could be looked at to reduce impacts a little bit, to see how we could make this fit better within the context of the corridor and to be less impactive. So based on that feedback from UDOT leadership, we went back and looked at the section that we're proposing for 56 South and looked at it, and we decided we can make a couple changes. We reduced the cross-sectional section from 112 feet wide to 103 feet wide. And we were able to do this by reducing some shoulder widths, just more concentrated on bike lanes and the buffered to the bike lanes. And then we revised the median from down to 14 foot wide. So that's where we're proposing it now. And we also looked at this multi-purpose trail, and we know, I mean, as we propose to take properties out there to widen this corridor, there's many properties that may have remaining parcels that we could incorporate a trail to be part of the corridor. So that's what this right side of the slide is talking about, where we can incorporate some trail aspects. And so those are kind of the cross-sectional design that we were looking at. I think we came back and met with Roy City leadership a few months ago and discussed this new 103-foot section that we are going to propose to move forward with. And I think you guys were supportive at that time. So since we came to this section in the last several months, we've been, now reassessing the impacts to see what this narrower section, what the impacts are, and how that factors out for the whole corridor and the project. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last several months. So this is kind of what the resulting preferred alternative looks like, and I'll just kind of run through this. So we, as you may remember, we kind of looked at shifting the corridor to the south side of the road, shifting the corridor to the north side of the road, and maybe a meander. This shifts kind of back and forward, maybe to minimize impacts. But as we looked at our corridor design, it became evident that the least impacting would be to shift the corridor to the south. And so the preferred alternative that we plan to present to the public is a shift south alternative. This includes basically widen 56 South from 3 lanes to 5 lanes throughout the stretch of the corridor. And shown there, we're gonna add multi-purpose trail on the south side of 56 South. We have bike lanes in the streets, but also a trail on the south side. We're gonna add dual left turn lanes out there at 3500 West, so we can have a well-functioning intersection out there as this area grows. We're gonna put in a grade separation at the D and RG trail crossing there. So we'll take the trail up and over the 56 South Street so we can have more increased pedestrian safety there. We are going to widen the bridge over the railroad to accommodate the wider lanes and section. They'll include, it's important here that we make improvements to the 1900 West intersection. This is a big, heavily traveled intersection. So we'll be adding dual left turn lanes in all directions on that intersection. We'll add a 3rd through lane east and west through the intersection. And we'll also be looking at adding dual southbound to westbound right turn lanes there. So that's all, that intersection will be greatly improved. Of course, widen the bridge over I-56 South. This is going to be a SPUI design, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Because of the close proximity of Riverdale Road and the 56 South interchanges here, we have incorporated a new CD ramp that will take, you'll exit at Riverdale Road and 56 South at the same point down here south of 56, and then it comes up and it'll split off to traffic, and I'll show you more detail on that in a minute. Additionally, we are going to provide a grade separated, we're going to grade separate Freeway Park Drive and the collector distributor ramp for Riverdale over 56 South. And I will show you a little more detail coming up. So that's kind of the overall corridor there. As we look at the interchange of 56 South and I-15, we are proposing this SPUI type design where you might be familiar with Riverdale Road and I-84, just close to the project here to the northeast. That is also what we call a SPUI design. It has one central signalized intersection in the middle. Riverdale Road happens to be on top of the freeway there at 84. And this one will be underneath the bridge. So I-15 will go over and the signalized intersection will be underneath the bridge, similar to like Layton Parkway down here. Or Layton Parkway is on top, so pardon that. But there's other SPUIs around that have this signalized intersection underneath. Kind of unique to this interchange design is this yellow line where, again, Riverdale Road and 56 South will come off at the same exit. Down on the ramp, they will split off. The green goes to 56 South and the yellow goes up over a bridge and goes directly onto Riverdale Road. So that that traffic can be separated out from the freeway. And it's important that we do that so we don't have weaving congestion here north of the interchange because these interchanges are so close, Riverdale Road and 56 South. So that's kind of the proposal for the CD for Riverdale Road ramp. But this bridge will also carry Freeway Park Drive. So Freeway Park Drive up here to the north of 56 South parallels the freeway, and it'll come up and go over the bridge and then connect this little loop over to this 56 South road, extension road on near the Hill Air Force Base, and then loop around. So I'll have a visual on how that kind of works. So if there's any questions here, but just rest assured, I mean, we've analyzed the traffic for these interchanges in the 56 South, 1900 West intersection, and they're all designed with the improvements that we're proposing to be able to handle the anticipated 2050 traffic with a level service D or better. So,
Scott, can I ask a question?
yeah.
So the bridge across 5600 down, is it 2700? Is it around there? The trail bridge.
Yeah, let's look back there if I can get back there.
I'm sorry, I should have asked.
Okay, so if you look at this, right in the middle, we got the DNRG trail. That is just west of 2700 West.
Okay, so there is a school direct right to the west of
To
there.
the west of there, yeah.
So is that anticipated to allow the students from the south side to cross over that bridge to the north side as well?
Hey, Scott, maybe I can maybe address that. We talked about that early on in the project because we realized how important, that would be to allow the school kids to cross there. They can certainly cross there. They can certainly cross there. It brings some of the students a little bit out of, they'd have to go just a little bit further, especially if they're on the west side of that school, if they wanted to cross there. I anticipate that we'll still keep the Hawk signal there as well for the crossing.
Okay, well, it just becomes a lot wider road.
Yeah,
So
you're right.
the safety of students would be considered, it'd be a concern because it's a lot wider road to get across. So
Yeah, that's correct. So if you know right now they have that signalized crosswalk there.
Right.
So we would keep that there. And then they'd also have the option to use the bridge if they wanted to.
okay, thank you.
We're also adding.
On 2100 West, you'll notice on this map, there's a red dot there.
Yes.
I believe, Scott, that's going to be another signalized crosswalk for kids. I believe there's a junior high school.
There is
2100.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll have another one that we're proposing there as well.
Thank you.
That bridge over 5600, if they were to use that for school crossing, is that ADA compliant to where you could get up that with a wheelchair?
Yes.
Yes,
It would have to be.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
And I think since we're talking about 5600 at this point, if I remember right, the conversation talked about moving this from a 35-mile-an-hour zone to a 45-mile-an-hour zone on 5600. Is that still the plan?
That's correct. That's what we anticipate.
Wow.
Thank you.
And the reason for that is, I mean, we're building a road. It's going to have 2 lanes each direction. It's going to have a wider median. We're not really going to have shoulders per se. It's going to be a bike lane, a buffered bike lane, but we really had to set the speed limit based on what people feel comfortable driving. So we figured that people are going to feel more comfortable going at faster speeds. Right now, we looked at a speed study. It looked like people were going almost 40 miles per hour on that road.
Correct.
So during school crossing times, again, will that be reduced to the traditional 20 miles an hour?
I can't speak to the law. What I recall, I don't know that you can have the crosswalk signal and a reduced speed zone for school at the same time. But that's something we'll have to work out with our traffic and safety office. But that's the way I understand it.
So I see that you are putting a light on 3100.
Yes.
Correct.
That is exciting news for the residents.
We actually got quite a bit of feedback when we had our meeting in August of 2018. We got quite a few people requesting that, and that just from our studies, it showed that especially for 2050 traffic, that's going to be needed for sure.
So when you say 2050 traffic, this is probably a dumb question, but you're not proposing when would they start this project and how long would it take?
So currently the project has not been funded. We do have the funding to complete the environmental document, which is the first step. Right now, our funding goes through year 2025. So what we anticipate is going to be somewhere between 2025 and 2030 when this actually gets constructed.
That's correct. It's a phase one project, which takes it from 2020 to 2030. And so we're anticipating sometime, it looks like right now, because you have funding already in place to support other programs up to 2025, it'd have to be 2025 to 2030 at some point. So we'll just see how the legislator works that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Let me
you.
go on. If you have more questions, just jump in anytime. So just, this is a little section of Freeway Park Drive and the Riverdale CD ramp. So the freeway is over here on the left side. The Riverdale CD ramp kind of goes parallel to Freeway Park Drive and goes up to Riverdale Road. And then we have a couple lanes and bike shoulder on Freeway Park Drive. So that's just kind of how that fits together. Next, I have a little graphic here that kind of shows how a car goes from 56 South up and over to Freeway Park Drive. So they come along and then go over the bridge and then come back down to the businesses there on Freeway Park Drive. Conversely, the other direction, coming from Freeway Park Drive, you go down and then you go up over the bridge right here and then loop around, make a left turn and come on to 5600 South. So that's kind of how Freeway Park Drive works. If you're coming in from the freeway, you get off on the ramps and stay to the 56 South side of the ramp. So you can come up to the intersection and then make a right turn. And then again, make that loop over to Freeway Park Drive. And then one more animation we got for you would be going to Riverdale Road. So you get off on the exit and then you stay to the right and take this diversion over to the Riverdale Road ramp. You go up over the bridge and come down and then just parallel between Freeway Park Drive and the freeway until you get up to the Riverdale Road ramp right there.
So there will no longer be a Riverdale exit. Is that?
The Riverdale exit will be combined
with the 5600.
With the 56 South, and then it divides there on the ramp.
So one navigation we didn't show is coming off the ramp and going on to 5600 South. We didn't intend to show that we're bypassing your city for sure.
That's okay. We understand.
That's another way for sure that they can go. But the new interchange will handle traffic a lot better. You'll be able to get a lot more people in and out on 5600 South for sure.
And how do you get to the like to the museum and Air Force Base Museum and the Northrop Grumman area at this point?
Okay, so as you come on 56 South going towards the base, it kind of turns south and comes down this intersection. I guess it's a little off this map, but you go south a little more and then you turn to the left and you come up this road on the far side of the slide to get to the museum.
Okay. Yeah, the road in the base is going to be pretty similar to what it is now, just much wider.
Yeah. Then if you go into the base, you just go south and go south to the entrance gate. So, okay.
How much of the project is going to take out 1900 west, particularly the west side? How far are you going to go down on those businesses?
Let me see if I can get to a map here. This is about the best map I got for 1900 West right now, but we're impacting the west side of 1900 West down to about 5700 South. Okay. So we're not taking out the businesses right along, taking out some of the businesses along here, but that ties back in at about 5700 right at the end of what's shown here.
What about north of?
To the north, we take out some businesses along the west side. Probably some where this blue line ends. So it goes a little bit farther to the north because we're widening for double turn lanes, both left and double right turn lanes. So the businesses that are set close to the road would have to be relocated. Some business set farther from the road, they could stay.
So how many do we have? Do we have a number of?
Yeah, let me get to that.
Homes?
Let me get to that. It's towards in my presentation coming up. So
oh,
let me go on with my presentation and we'll talk about that when I get to it. Does that work?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. I just wanted to cover the active transportation elements, the bikes and the pet trails. So of course we talked about bike lanes on 5600 South, and those are continuous. And they kind of show up in orange here as we come into the 1900 West intersection. We just want to show you how bikes will get onto Freeway Park Drive too. So there's bike lanes on 5600 South, both sides of the road, and they will loop around to this loop, go over the bridge that goes over 56, and then onto Freeway Park Drive. So those bike lanes are continuous through this interchange and into Freeway Park Drive. So for pedestrians, you know, you could walk along the east side of the bridge, but also we put in this path here that's shown in yellow. So if you're at the walk along the street, you can just go under the bridge of the road and then just take this little yellow path. We have a path that's kind of at grade and goes along the embankment fill. And then once the embankment fill tapers down to natural ground, this path will tie into the sidewalk. So we've kind of given like this little shortcut here for pedestrians who need to get over Freeway Park Drive without having to walk around the whole circle. So that's kind of how the bikes and peds will work in the area. Okay. So as we finalize up our impacts and our from our reassessment, we did hold an online right-of-way workshop that was held from March 19th to April 7th. We put this online. People are able to go through it, look at it. We reviewed about 80 times and we had about 7.4 hours of watch time. So I think there was some decent participation there. We got 24 comments from the public, the property owners who were invited. And so we had some timeline, schedule, process concerns, home improvement, reimbursement. So we had UDOT agents respond to those who had inquiries, and they talked to them about these issues. So that was just kind of trying to get a feel of what the property owners were saying about the impacts that we were talking about with this corridor.
How much time will the property owners have to relocate their businesses once you start this project?
I think there's about, once we agree to a purchase price, it's probably about a 90-day for residential relocation period, and businesses probably have a little longer. I'm not quite sure. I have to talk to UDOT, but whatever the federal requirements are, we follow those requirements when acquiring right away. So
do you have a rough idea as to how many homeowners and businesses have already been contacted?
So with the right-of-way workshop, we sent out 88 contacts to business owners along the corridor. So we were contacting basically those who were fully impacted by the project. So this slide here, to answer your question, we have on the right side, we have 75 full acquisitions. This means we have 15 commercial acquisitions. This is all in the neighborhood of 56 South at 1900 West. So some on 1900 West and some on 56 South in that general area of that intersection. That's the commercial relocations. We have 58 residential relocations. Those are along the corridor from 1900 West all the way out to 3500 West. And so those are the residential relocations, most of them on the south side of the road. So there are a few isolated ones on the north side of the road and other locations. We have 2 vacant lots out west of 3500 West that we need to use for water quality purposes and detention. So that's that.
Is it
So
possible to get the comments and the responses back from the public outreach?
Yeah, I think, Ken, you have those, we could send those out, right? So yeah, we could send that to you. So in addition to the 75 full acquisitions, we have 75 partial acquisitions. What this means is we have, we need to strip a property along the front of the property. So that would be 46 commercials and 22 residentials that we need a strip of property like along the front, but it doesn't necessarily impact the business or it doesn't impact the home. They're able to still live there and conduct business, et cetera. So 7 undeveloped utilities, that's along the corridor. And then there's a power station and stuff like that. So questions on these numbers of partial and full acquisitions?
No.
Okay. The next slide is kind of the next steps we have. So as you know, COVID-19 is kind of hindering our ability to hold a public hearing. We're working with UDOT on how to do that in an effective manner, in a safe manner. So UDOT is coming up with some, trying to evaluate how we can meet the federal requirements for a public hearing, but do it safely in the COVID-19 scenario here. So we think UDOT's working on that. We think we may have a virtual way to be approved to do that. So we're hoping by summer, so hopefully in July, we can get a public hearing scheduled and handled for that requirement that we have. We then, once we hold the public hearing, we're going to move to a decision document that should be completed by the fall of 2020. And then construction, as we talked about, all transportation funds through 2024 have already been allocated to projects. So this would be sometime 2025 or so on. So that's kind of to be determined. But Tom, I don't know if you have other things to add on this timeline thing.
No, I was going to say, and probably, I'm not sure if the mayor's aware, we did a little exercise this last legislative session to see if there was something we could do to help improve the interchange area short of, spending $90 million on a brand new interchange. So what we came up with our traffic guys is that, hey, if we just do an intersection improvement at 1900 West to allow that intersection to function a lot more smoothly and get people going east and west a little bit more efficiently, then that could probably buy us, maybe 10 years of better traffic movement through that interchange area. So we're actually looking at maybe having something done here within the next couple of years. That and the improvements we make there are already options or parts of the study that we're doing now.
Right.
So I mean, conceptually, we understand what we need to do. So it's just a matter of timing with this environmental assessment, timing for funding to get that done. But I think it's going to be coming within the next couple of years, Mayor.
Yeah, and we were excited when we heard about that. I think the raw number was about $10 million worth of improvements to kind of give us a bridge. And we're excited to see that happen. So yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah. That's all I had, Scott. I believe that concludes our presentation for this evening. We'd love to field any questions that any on the council or any of the staff have for us right now.
This stopgap or interim improvement you were talking about, I somewhere got to look at that. And to me, it looked like you were just funneling more vehicles into a bottleneck. You were widening up 1900, pushing more cars into the bottleneck underneath the freeway on 56. I was struggling to understand how that was going to alleviate, because what happens is it backs up down 5600.
Mm-hmm. So we had when we evaluated these options, we had our we have this project wide and this traffic model that we've used, that we've created for our study, and it goes. I mean, it anticipates more than just project wide. It gets into surrounding communities as well, just to try to anticipate what the traffic flow would be, and I think you might still see that bottleneck. But I think I don't know, the traffic numbers just bear out that it will work. I'm not a traffic engineer or really able to defend the numbers, other than what we saw from the results said that it should work.
Hey Tom, I think we have Ivan on the line too. Ivan,
if Ivan's on, maybe he can describe.
You actually got David Bezin on the line.
Okay, so we do have a traffic engineer. That's great. Help us out, David.
So the concern is on 19th West and the improvements of widening there, how that would create a bottleneck for the interchange.
No,
well, basically what it looked like you were doing is you were flowing more cars eastbound off of 1900 onto 5600. So, okay, you put a double turn lane headed east, you're filtering more cars onto 5600, but there wasn't any widening of 5600 to accommodate for the additional flow of vehicles on there. I go up 5600, turn onto Freeway Park Drive to hit the park and ride. Most mornings I can't get up that because there's so many cars bottlenecked into 5600 coming off of 19th that I've started going over to Riverdale Road and coming back. So I don't see how widening 1900 and putting more cars onto 5600 helps the project. Maybe I'm missing something. That's what I'm asking.
What we were seeing with the volume growth is that the 10-year plan, that's what we're talking about, is getting 10 years from now. We looked at the traffic volumes with that. The improvements that are needed to make it so that we can get to an acceptable level of service. We actually looked at the traffic volumes that we're projecting in the area, and that was what we were using to develop the models and to make sure that we have accounted for the traffic demand. When we make improvements, traffic moves around a little bit, and so yeah. I apologize. I don't have a map in front of me with the volumes pulled up. This environment we're working in is a little bit different than what I typically get to work with, but doing the best we can. What we got.
So the way it was explained to me when we were looking at that, because in my mind, I was thinking we were looking at all these other grand, intermediate projects that we could do. And so I asked the question to Ivan, says, are you telling me that making these improvements at 1900 West is going to improve the interchange?
Oh,
And another part of the project is going to be a right turn lane from southbound Freeway Park Drive to go westbound. So that's another thing that will help. Maybe not the specific issue that you mentioned, but what he says is once you make that 1900 West signal function much better to clear out the north and south, that gives more time to the east-west traffic, which should alleviate some of that bottleneck that you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
I've got a different question if you can. Let me ask you this. These environmental assessment studies, obviously I assume it has some type of a timeline that it's still effective. The dynamics of the situations can change. How long does an ENA study basically good for in order for you to still rely upon the data?
This is Dana Holmes. Usually projects, the shelf life on an environmental project, it can be about 5 to 7 years, depending on the area. So if there's not a lot of change in the area, if an area is built out similar to a city like Roy, chances are that there might be some small updates that would be necessary to the environmental assessment, but it wouldn't need to be redone completely.
Okay. So basically, as I said, we think this is, once it's approved, it'll be a pretty solid plan, but there may be some tweaking that'll be necessary as we get closer to the actual execution of the construction. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Other questions?
Just one
Okay.
more thing about those volumes. We actually, because we were concerned about them, we did actually do some sensitivity testing where we did grow the volumes even beyond what we were anticipating to make sure that we would be able to accommodate that future condition, just
Okay.
as an FYI.
That's perfect. So the next step in this process, if I read your charts right, would be is you plan to hold sometime in the summer. Once you work it out with UDOT in terms of the mechanism to the public, you'll have a public hearing. And then from there, you'll take that input and a complete assessment. Our proposal will be presented sometime in the fall of 2020. Who's the ultimate approval authority now for this package?
Dana, can you respond to that?
Oh.
I understand that FHWA has given UDOT approval authority on environmental documents. Is that correct, Dana?
Yes, it's called the NEPA assignment, but yes, UDOT. So we take all the public input and stakeholder input. We respond to all the comments we receive during the comment period. In some cases, there may be slight changes to the document depending on the nature of the comments. And then UDOT reviews the final documentation and approves. Perfect.
Okay, that was important. I didn't know if it had to go to the Transportation Commission for approval. It sounds like UDOT can make the approval based on the final package that's submitted. Let me ask you just another question along that line. Sometimes Roy City is made aware, the government's made aware of, for a better word, land or these right-of-way acquisitions where the property is made available. Meaning is that there's a plan to sell the property. Does Roy City have any options to notify then UDOT that particular property is within this corridor is now going to become made available, and that we can notify them in case you do have some funding in case you want to purchase this property prior to the actual development or construction phase?
And we do have a mechanism through our corridor preservation funds. Of course, I mean, in your situation that you present, Mayor, it's a willing seller for sure.
Right.
The problem with our corridor preservation fund, as I understand it right now, it is strapped. We are running low on funds to be able to do that. But if you get word of a possible seller, I mean, I'd give me a holler, contact me. I can see if there's some sort of mechanism that we can use to preserve that piece.
Yeah, we think that's important. Two reasons, and correct me if I'm wrong. When you do your full acquisition, typically, you'll buy the property at whatever the market value of that property is. But I'm concerned that you may also be responsible to minimize any lease agreements that may be on that property at the time that you need to go start construction. Is that a correct statement, that you pay for basically not only the property, but if there's an extended lease on that, you may also have to buy out that lease?
That is correct, that we have to resolve the lease agreements.
The lease agreements. So our interest would be is that if a piece of property within the corridor is made aware to us that it's under sell, it would probably be helpful if we just notify you that rather than leasing it to a third party, it might be best if they just simply allow you at least to look into it and see if there's an option there to maybe purchase it so you don't have to buy out that lease.
Yep, that's correct. And we have had some development come in and talk to us. You might be familiar with, there's a Maverick that was interested in that southeast parcel, 5600, 1900 West. So our permits office, they've included me so that I can keep them updated on or appraised of what we're planning on doing in the future. So I mean, I think our coordination with development anyways, I think that still needs to continue to happen for sure.
Okay, we'll try to do our part as a municipality and keep you abreast of anything that we see or is taking place to make sure you're aware of any purchases or any selling that may take place with the properties in question. Okay,
all
Council,
right.
Do we have any other questions for UDOT? I'm not hearing any, so I'm going to make the assumption that you did. And by the way, we appreciate the information, very informative. Obviously, you're now going to take this presentation to our colleagues in Riverdale. They have a piece of this action as well. And now, if there's any questions that come out from the public, who should they reach out to in terms of getting questions the public may have?
That's a good question. I would send them to Kent Jorgensen. Kent he's with Lochner, but we've hired him to do that work for us, to communicate with the public and to take those contacts.
Perfect. Do you have an email address or a phone number you'd like the public to reach out to?
I do. I'm sorry, I do.
Oh.
That's Kent echoing.
Okay, Kent.
Our project site, our project page, we have all the information so they can call.
So they can go to the project site and call in or leave comments there. So
just go to the project site on UDOT on 50, shows 5600, make comments there and get that connection that way.
And there's a telephone number there too if they want to call.
One
Perfect.
clarification, the comment feature on that website would only be active during the official comment period when the document is released. So if folks have comments before or outside that official comment period, then they can use that phone number or email address, and Kent keeps tabs on all of that, and he can answer questions. He'll also notify them that their comment or question would only be included in the final document as an official comment if it's given during the official comment period. And we usually notify the public, well, we always notify the public of when that comment period is. It's from the date that we publish the document to usually about 30 days later, but we still happily answer questions for people outside that comment period. They just won't be included as part of the official document.
That's great information to know. Thank you.
And Mayor, do you have that website address?
I do. I've looked at it before, so I'll go ahead and make sure that that's made available if we do get calls. To be honest with you, there's a good chance they may reach out to the city. We don't want to get public confused. If it's a question we can answer, we'll answer it. If not, we surely want to refer it to your organization and let the experts talk to it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's how we prefer it as well.
I have a
Okay.
question. When do you anticipate that 30-day public comment period?
Right now, it could be as early as mid-June, but depending on when we can get the public hearing scheduled, we will start the public comment period 15 days before and go to 15 days after the public hearing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good comment. Well, we want to thank UDOT then. Thank you for your presentation. Really good information. We're excited about this. Obviously, we have some traffic challenges, and we think this is a great solution to help us through this traffic issues that we face. So thank you for the presentation. If we have other questions, we'll direct them to your experts and help us guide us through this process. If there's anything that you think that we can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out to the city manager or myself, and we'll do what we can to help you with anything that Roy City can do to make this successful.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Council, we got a couple of action items here. We do have a consideration resolution 20-11 honoring the Roy High Royals graduation class of 2020. Do I have any comments relative to resolution 2011?
I appreciate Andy's work on that. I know that he was very instrumental in producing the wording on it, so it's appropriate for a resolution. So thank you to him for working on that.
I appreciate
Jan,
your comments too, Jan.
I should also say that we heard that you had an involvement too, so we appreciate you offering some expertise in helping draft that resolution. Thank you. Any comments, Council, on resolution 20-11?
I think it's great, seeing as how I have a senior that's under that. So it'd be nice to have an official resolution in place honoring him.
Perfect. Can I take that comment to mean that you give us a motion then to approve resolution 20-11, a resolution by Roy City Council honoring Roy High School 2020 graduate class?
So moved. Okay, I'll second it.
Thank you. We got Joe Paul give us the motion. Jan Burrell, Councilman Burrell gave us the second. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
and Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Morgan. And Andy, thank you again for drafting that up. Well written. It reads very well. Thank you. And we'll make sure we get that information. And Jan, this is an official document once signed. Would you help us to get this to the Weaver School District, and particularly Mr. It probably ought to go to Matt Williams. And however he wants to use it or delegate it out or whatever he feels comfortable, we'd like to make sure he sees it. Does that be okay?
Sure, I'll get that to him immediately.
Thank you. We'll get that signed, Morgan, and then we get that out to them. Okay, another action item. We have consideration for resolution 20-12. This is approving the Roy City Public Works Department report and the completion of a municipal wastewater planning program survey. I believe, Brandon, you're going to talk to this one. Is that correct?
I am. So thanks for having me tonight. I'm going to here for consideration of resolution 20-12, approving the Roy City Public Works Department report of completion of the municipal wastewater planning program survey and authorizing it submission to the Utah Department of Environmental Quality Division of Water Quality.
Okay. Council, any comments for Brandon as it relates to what this is all about, or anything you may have a concern with?
No, it seemed well read. I mean, it seemed easy to read.
Okay.
The report.
No,
And I'll take.
Appreciate their work on it.
Okay, in absence of just a couple of comments then, do I have a motion then to approve resolution 20-12?
I motion that we approve resolution 20-12.
I'll second.
Okay, we have Councilmember Jackson making the motion and Councilmember Paul seconded. This is a roll call vote. Morgan?
Councilmember Saxton,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Burrell,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Morgan. Brandon, thank you for putting that together. It looks really good. Okay, let's go ahead. We'll move on. We're now moving to the public comment period. I do believe, Morgan, we have two individuals that may have an interest and would like to talk. Let's go ahead and we'll start with Kevin Homer. Kevin, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. Go ahead. Give us your thoughts.
Just a couple of things. First of all, I want to give you some feedback. I appreciate very much that you all included the Pledge of Allegiance. Even though it might be a little staggered and disjointed and out of sync, I think it is a very good reminder for everyone why you're here and why all the rest of us are here. So my feedback is keep doing it, please. The other thing I want to ask is on the 28th of April, I sent an email to Mayor Dandoy, all the members of the City Council, and to Steve Parkinson with 3 different proposals for increasing communication with the Planning Commission. First one is to create an email address specifically that could be used to get to the information and correspondence to the Planning Commission. Second one was to include Zoom teleconferencing as a normal part of their regular meetings, not necessarily the working meeting, but the regular meeting. And the third one is, I believe that either the City Council or the Planning Commission can, and specifically would need to add a public comment section to the Planning Commission regular meeting to allow for some interaction. Right now, the way the Planning Commission works, and I'm sure each one of you, and especially Joe Paul, would be able to give some insight into this. It's very difficult, at least from my end, to be able to give feedback to the Planning Commission just as a regular citizen person. So those are the proposals sent it a few weeks ago. I would appreciate either a little bit of feedback right now or later in an email from this group. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, Kevin. Okay, we'll get you an update on those 3 issues and see what we can come up with. I do know that the Planning Commission is using Zoom, but I think the intent would be is to expand that a little broader than what's being used today. So we'll take a peek at that and get some feedback to you. Thanks, Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I believe we had a comment by Mr. Gonzalez. Manuel, are you on? Mr. Gonzalez, are you there?
He's on mute. He'll just need to take himself off of mute.
Manuel, if you could go ahead and take yourself off mute. We see you're on. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to address the council about opening the swimming pool to the Roy Complex. There are a lot of us senior citizens that depend on that pool for exercise. I personally can't walk. I have 2 bad knees. I mean, I can walk with 2 canes. And that is the only way I can exercise is in a pool. And I do lap swimming. I've been calling the pool to find out updates when they were going to open. They said not till September. And I'm like, wow, I've already been off 2 months and my body is slowly stiffening up because I don't have that regular exercise that I've been doing. I've been going there for like 10 years. I recently started going to the Ben Lomond pool. They opened up when Governor went from red to orange for lap swimming only. And then this Saturday, when he went from orange to yellow, now they're open up for lap swimming, aerobic exercises, and I don't mind going there. It's just that I'm on the Silver Sneakers program. I don't know if any of you are aware of that our insurance pays for us to go and exercise every day. Ben Lomond or Ogden High School does not have that program because they are not a full gym facility. They're just the pool. So I would just like to propose that maybe you guys can open up the pool sooner than September, because we all need that exercise. I understand you're trying to keep people separated from this, to keep us safe from the virus, especially us older people. But we also, older people need to stay active also. And for some of us, that is the only way I can be active, or a lot of us can be active, is in the pool. So I would just like to ask you, the council, if they could maybe open it sooner than September. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. And by the way, I think, Manuel, there'll be a conversation that's going to take place during the city manager and council report that deals with these particular facilities. So you may want to stay on. Let's see where the conversation goes.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other more public comments out there? Morgan, do we have anybody else?
Not that I'm aware of, Mayor.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll close the public comment period for the meeting. Let's go ahead and we'll jump into the city manager's report.
Mayor, council, I do have a little bit to go over, so bear with me. We've received some comments about a map at the cemetery. Being Memorial Day weekend coming up shortly, we are going to provide some maps down there to be able to locate graves. In the past, people have had some difficult times if they don't know where they're at, if they're just going to Roy Cemetery to find an individual that has been buried there. We'll just have some maps out. There's 3 locations that we'll put them at. They're just going to be laminated. You'll be able to find the name alphabetically and then refer them over to the map from the cemetery. So we appreciate the comments to get that going. Last council meeting, I did talk a little bit about the Shop Local campaign that's been going on. I just wanted to follow up a little bit with that. We've had 27 businesses reach out and would like to participate with that. That's the little cards, little punch cards that we are going to hand out, that you'd get 10 punches for going to these locations. Anybody else is more than welcome to contact us, but would like to give a little shout out to some of the Roy businesses that would like to participate in the giveaways with those cards. So Roy Dental Care has donated a $500 gift certificate. Biomat Plasma is donating Bluetooth speakers, headphones, water bottles, and sunglasses. Matt Brooks Donuts and Sandwich Shop is donating some prizes. And then Copies Plus is actually going to print those cards for us for cost. So big shout out to them. 27 businesses thus far. That's just in the last 2 weeks that this has been going on. We urge other businesses that are hearing about this, or if you guys know and want to reach out to those businesses, just give us a holler out. So also wanted to talk a little bit about the budget. As we talked about before, we did a presentation last council meeting. Just wanted to talk about 3 different revenue items real shortly. Sales tax, we talked a little bit about being down about projections of $500,000. Transportation infrastructure would be down $78,000. And Class C roads is down $304,000, totaling about $882,000 down just in the general fund with those 3 line items. The reason why I want to bring that up is because of our next topic. As you know, we are now in the yellow stage. This yellow is not the yellow that we seen 2 weeks ago. There's a lot of changes that happened from 2 weeks ago. The day before we went yellow, there was a lot of changes to that yellow, and that has to do with contact sports. That has to do with a lot of stuff, recreation. We've discussed a little bit before about the aquatic center, talking about the 4 hurdles that we would need to overcome in order to open it up. One of those hurdles is actually the health department giving us the ability to open up. They have since done so with the new yellow phase. But some of these other hurdles, the expenditures is obviously a big hurdle, and the greatest hurdle in opening up the aquatic center. We would have to add, in order to open up this year, we'd have to add about $335,000 to the budget, to the expense budget, in order to operate the aquatic center. And we would expect, with the capacity that we could hold down there under these new regulations, that we would have revenue of about $145,000 in revenue, leaving us a shortfall of about $190,000 that we would need to come up with. This is why I mentioned the expenses or the revenues that were short at the beginning of this conversation, is because that brings us over $1 million shortfall from where we were last year in order to meet par to where we were. That's probably the biggest hurdle. We obviously have the hurdle of staffing. We have to have 60 guards, 20 office and concessions, 4 head guards. We told this staff, we had about 14 staff members that we have since told that we were not opening the aquatic center due to our last conversation.
Matt, what about enforcement of social distancing? Would that be on the staff as well? Because you couldn't expect a traditional employment staff to also be responsible for enforcement of social distancing.
Yes, spot on, correct. We were, and that's kind of in the next hurdle of logistics, because we would probably need more staffing to overcome those. As I stated before, we could operate about 50% of capacity. With that 50% capacity, you can let 50% of the people in. But once you get in there, you can also only have so many people per location to have that social distancing. So each pool would need to be monitored. I wouldn't want our lifeguards doing that monitoring. We'd have to enforce that in other ways. But with all this being said, this is stuff that the city can overcome. These hurdles, the logistics, we can figure out ways of doing it. The staffing, we can issue the job. We've issued it before and we didn't get any feedback, but we can be a little bit more, trying to get a little bit more creative with hiring new staff. These are hurdles that we can overcome. But I have to ask the question, is this the best way for Roy City to go forth, to have to come up with $200,000 out of our general fund? You're talking police cars, you're talking staff, you're talking all these different things in the general fund that we would have to jeopardize in order to open up the aquatic center.
I have a question, Matt. Even if you were to open the aquatic center, we figure we could pull this money out of somewhere. What is the soonest you could open up, and how long do you anticipate being able to open up?
The soonest we could open up, if we got really lucky with staff, you have to train the lifeguards for about 5 weeks. But we would have about a week more of recruitment that we need to take place. So we would issue the jobs, have those lifeguards come in, because they do have to go through that training. So you'd be looking July 1st or July 15th, possibly.
Wow, that's half the season.
So the other question I would ask, Matt, is let's say that you could increase the revenue by increasing the cost of going into the aquatic center. Do we have any estimate of what that increase would have to be in order to make up that revenue loss?
We could have, Camille's on the line. Camille, could you start calculating some of that out for us?
Because to me, it seems a bit overwhelming, that revenue loss. And I think our public doesn't understand what, or maybe I don't understand, maybe the public is smarter than I am, but what it would take in increased fees in order to make up that funding loss.
One of the issues with increasing the fees is there's that happy medium of people just not wanting to come too. And so as you increase the fee, less people would come, making you less money. And so there's that happy medium there.
It is more than just a social decision, though. If we are running this as a business, which I think at times, I understand Parks and Rec generally are not money generating. We do it for a service to the citizen. But as a business,
we have to be fiscally.
We've got to be fiscally prudent. And could you open this up knowing at a minimum you're going to have a $200,000 loss for half a season? That's you know, and we talk about the other shortfalls. So if we continue to have shortfalls, where do we go from here? Sales tax revenue is not heading up. Nobody wants to talk about property tax increases, but if we
And do we want to do that on the backs of our citizens or on the backs of whoever is using the facility?
I'm with Jan. You put $200,000 out of the general budget into it. That affects every citizen versus just the people that are using the place.
Plus, even if you charge non-residents double the price, I just can't see having that run half capacity, trying to keep people 6 feet apart, and then say someone's drowning and lifeguard has to jump in to save them. And then obviously you want them to cough, and then they cough on that 16-year-old lifeguard. I just think it's
the liability is phenomenal.
It's just too much liability, in my opinion. I mean, I frequent that place every summer, my grandkids, but I just think if it's $200,000 and then you're making half the revenue, and we're already going to have to cut back, we have to still fund our city. One summer, I just think residents just gonna have to bite the bullet and not have the aquatic center for one summer.
I think this is unprecedented times, and we're just going to have to make unprecedented decisions on it.
One thing I want to mention is that even though the state is called yellow phase low risk, I'm not really sure what they're referring to for low risk, because the rate of increase of cases has stayed 4.2 to 4.8% even since the beginning. So the rate of positive cases still has not actually really declined. And so low risk must mean something in different ways, but not on the medical public infection side of things.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
And I think we have to be mindful of what the liability of any of it is.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a couple of questions then, Matt. I'm sensing, Brian, you haven't weighed in on this one. Do you have a comment associated with the aquatic center?
I do. First of all, just a question to Matt, and first of all, I've heard from a lot of people that when it opened, okay? But here's just an idea, and you can shoot it full of holes, because maybe it's not a good one. But two of our biggest concerns are going to be obviously the revenue that the aquatic center generates and cutting it off at 50 people. But
not necessarily 50 people. We could have quite a few more because it's a public facility. So we could have, those numbers don't just equate only to 50 people. We can have so many people per square foot of that place to require the 6 feet social distancing with the new health requirements.
Do you roughly know how many people that would be?
About 549.
For a day or?
Well, so traditionally speaking, when you go to the aquatic center, most people don't go right first thing in the morning and then go home right when it's closing. They usually go there in the morning and then leave, and then new people come. And so when we determine these numbers, we just didn't say 500 people, 550 people a day. We actually determined that they would be there the same length of time, maybe 2 to 3 hours a day, but then just use the accounting figures that we had to determine 50% capacity. That's actually how we did it. So if you were to say people can't go there for a longer period of time, they typically aren't either, and it's already built into our numbers. And so it would be pretty harsh on doing that even more. If we limited it to 2 hours per session or something, we'd have to even limit it more than that.
You had a second question, Brian.
I do. Because what I was just brainstorming, and that's all it is. And I hope everybody will take it for that. But if we had the same groups of people go into the aquatic center daily, one way we could generate additional revenue is by, cutting the day, so to speak, in half with some kind of wristband or some kind of notification that says they arrived at this point in time and they'll leave at this point in time. And that way you've got an additional group of people filling that gap during that same day, instead of having the same people there daily. So I was thinking, I wasn't thinking $200,000. That's why I'm glad the questions have been asked. But I'm just trying to brainstorm. The next question, I guess, is if we didn't open the aquatic center this summer, would we open the splash pad at Wayland? Because I would see that a lot of the pressure and a lot of the people that use the splash pad, some of them would find their way that direction, and that might be even harder to gate or count or control or limit. But in turn, I'd hate to see both the splash pad and the aquatic center and the complex all gone and have be a very hot summer. And so do we have an idea of what surrounding cities are looking at now?
Yeah, to kind of start out with the first question, you're probably right. We could probably get a little bit more revenue if we limited the amount of time per wristband. I don't know if that could equate to the $200,000, the shortfall that we need. It's really one way to find out with that. I have a hard time seeing that we could come up with $200,000. As I said before, with the natural way that people go in and out of that place, that they don't spend all day anyway, it's hard to determine. We don't have the numbers to know how long the average person does stay in there to limit and get more people in there. So that's kind of a little harder question for us to ask. We try to take as much of that into consideration as possible when determining our numbers. But the second question with the splash pad, we have to wait until we hear back from the health department. They haven't actually issued the requirements on the splash pads yet. I don't know if other cities, we've been trying to talk as many as possible, but a lot of the cities are doing what we're doing now and having these discussions right now, maybe today or even the next council meeting. So a lot of people are really trying to figure it out. It kind of came to a surprise to see how much has changed in the yellow versus 2 weeks ago, and even going into yellow, it kind of took us off guard. We didn't have any time to really to look into it and to before with the old yellow. That's what we were anticipating going to that, and with these new changes, it just changed too fast. And I think the other cities are going through the same thing.
How do you enforce the splash pad? Do you now have to hire employees or stage employees there to make sure it's staying clean, distancing?
There's a good possibility. Typically speaking, we don't open the splash pad until Memorial Day, so it wouldn't have been open on a typical year yet. I believe that there's going to be a conversation this week with the health department during a conference call or something that they can give us a little bit more insight on that. But really the splash pad isn't a huge feature. We might be able to get 10 to 12 people on there at a time to do that normal social distancing, be it that we have to have an employee, be it that we have to have additional personnel there to monitor that. I'm not sure about the requirements yet. I'm sure that 6-foot social distancing still is going to be a requirement though.
The other thing I would ask Matt, and Anna's alluded to it several times, but I mean, I don't want to be a bad neighbor, but certainly how many of the people using our facility are outside of our city, and the cost is on the backs of our city, not on the backs of their city. So because I think about how many cities around us have a city pool or a city facility of this nature, and it's pretty limited.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting a lot of outside people. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm being a bad neighbor. I don't want to sound like we're exclusive, but certainly we can't afford to support their recreational needs at a huge cost to our city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. There is a lot of people. This is quite popular for the surrounding cities.
And I think you're making a comment, but you're on mute.
Right. I would guess half. All my daughter's friends, we see them every year. They don't live in Royce City. We talk to people from all cities that come every year to the Aquatic Center. And like you said, we're footing the bill for them to come and have fun and I just can't see by us running half capacity that we're going to be losing money. And then like the $200,000 to start it. I mean, I enjoy that more than anybody. My grandkids are going to be sad, but we don't have a, crystal ball. We don't know what the future holds. And I just think that money is it's sad, but you know what? We never asked for this virus. We never asked for these times. And we're just going to have to run through the sprinklers this summer, I guess.
Well, let's go to the third question, Matt, that was brought up. Brian asked the question about the complex. What is the plan for the complex? Because it does have a pool.
Okay. Let me answer Councilmember Burrell's question. Camille texted me. We're looking around around $6, given that we still maintain that same percentage of people coming. So it would over double the price of the Aquatic Center to
Thank
come
you.
up with that money. To go on with the complex, it's a little bit more realistic. We have some of the same concerns there, the logistical issues, but our staff, I'm confident that they can figure things out. In fact, I know that they can. But we would need an additional, so in our budget, we anticipated that we would open up the Aquatic Center in September 1st. If we opened it now, the revenues with the expenditures, we would have to have an additional at least $63,000 to open the complex. You obviously wouldn't be able to have as many people at the complex, but you do have multiple sources of recreation there with the basketball courts and the swimming pool and the weight room and the racquetball. Each place would have to be limited on what we do there, of how many people would be able to go in there. One thing that's nice about the complex and not the Aquatic Center is that there's a big difference between a seasonal pool and a year-round pool. The year-round pools, we have the staff there already in place. They obviously haven't been working lately, and the ones that do and have full-time jobs, we've been assigning them in other places in the city that we could reassign them back to the complex. But the lifeguards, we could call them back in. As you know, that there's not as many lifeguards over at the complex. At the Aquatic Center, there's like 16 per shift at one given time. In the complex, you have a couple of them there. So it's a little easier to facilitate, not as big as facility.
Hey, Matt, what about charging?
Again, you'll have to.
We do charge a non-resident fee at both locations, so that is already in place.
What about increasing the non-resident fee? We're putting the money that we're losing on the back of citizens of this city, but they're utilized by other cities.
Travis, I believe was.
I'm going to jump in and correct you on something there. We do not charge an out-of-resident fee.
That's what I thought.
At the aquatic center?
We do not charge an out-of-resident fee at the aquatic center. At the complex, there is a discounted rate for passes as far as a monthly, 6-month, and yearly passes for Roy residents. But if you are just doing day admissions, it is the same rate whether you live in Roy or you live in another city. One of the challenges we have, we get so many 12-year-old kids. How are they going to show us any form of ID? They don't have student cards. They're in 5th and 6th grade. We don't have an ability to get an ID from those individuals.
Ask their address, see how well they know it. Just kidding.
Well, here's a question for you, Travis, Matt. What's the timeline in terms of the decision was to go ahead and try to beat the September target in opening? When could you open the complex?
We talked a little bit today about it. One of the things with the complex is we usually shut down the week before Labor Day, right after kids get into school. We're trying to do a lot of that work right now, so we'd still be out a couple of weeks. But if we set today, we possibly could get it up by July 1st or July 15th if we're rushing.
Matt, I'm going to jump in one more time. I'm sorry. You know, building maintenance does a phenomenal job, and I think we'll need to get with them for sure. But it might be as early as the 15th of June that we could potentially open there.
Oh, sorry, I meant June, not July. Sorry,
Is that
Travis.
the aquatic center or the complex?
The complex. The aquatic center, frankly speaking, we start doing lifeguard training in January, which we did, and we taught another class in February, and then all this started going down, and we spend, you know, roughly $6,000+ a year on training a staff to open that facility. And when unfortunately, when this virus started hitting, we suspended that. We didn't know what the future held. We thought we needed to be good stewards of city money and say, if we're not going to be bringing in money, we cannot continue to do this training. I've told Matt, and I've been on record with some of you guys, letting you know we need 6 weeks to open up this facility. It's 6 weeks. Like Matt said, he's laid it out very well for you guys tonight in that we need a week to hire people and recruit, and we need probably 4 weeks to train. We are going to have to, more than likely, we would have 40+ new lifeguards that we would need to get CPR and lifeguard certified.
So the aquatic center just doesn't seem legitimate. It doesn't seem like it could be cost effective at any point.
The aquatic center, there's no doubt, is a larger and much harder challenge for a lot of the reasons that Matt has laid out, in that the volume of lifeguards, the different rules, the fact that based on the conversation we had 2 weeks ago, we currently don't have one staff member at the aquatic center, where we are prepared at the complex with staff members in place.
Can I ask a question, Travis, about the complex, just really quickly too?
Please.
So with the current health Department of Health instructions, what would it take to enforce, not the other issues, but just what do we anticipate the cost of enforcing the social distancing regulations? Because that would be an additional cost incurred, as would, my understanding would be the health care or the sanitation or whatever you want to call that, of say the locker rooms and all that. And the other concern I would have, and then I'll quit talking, would be we're dealing probably with our most at-risk population at the complex.
There is no doubt there is going to be an increase in cost. We think we can do that. You know, we've went off contingency plan. I am very proud of my staff for trying to think of lots of different angles with this. From you can allow one person per every 100 square feet. So what we would do is we would take that measurement of the weight room, and we would probably issue them sanitation bottles, and we'd only have 10 of them, because there might only be 10 people you can let in. So one of the challenges is going to be is people want to come in to use an area that is already full. We're going to have to tell them, I'm sorry, you can't use that area right now. As far as how much do we think it would cost us in staff, we think we could have 2 rovers that could walk the facility, but for the most part, we think we can deal with a lot of that at check-in to try to keep those costs down. Your second question, when you talked about the most vulnerable, you're 100% right. The AM session of the complex does very, very well with getting senior citizens. Mr. Gonzalez talked about Silver Sneakers program. It's been a program that's been a tremendous asset to the complex, as well as the community. You know, the truth of the matter is the health department changed the guidelines on that. In the original version, and Matt alluded to this, that what they used to say we were going to do in yellow on the first version isn't what they're saying we need to do in yellow now. In the original versions in yellow, we were still supposed to try to encourage senior citizens in our most vulnerable population not to come. That's gone. They're not, that's not on the docket anymore of concerns for them. You know, I think that's something we'd have to work out, though, as far as would we want to offer some of them classes still, or would we just try to allow them to maybe come in as a set time with each other, maybe you block off an hour block that is just for senior citizens. I mean, there's several variables we can go with, but we're not mandated by the health department anymore to have to give them special consideration.
What about the sanitation concerns? I think about the locker rooms, Chav. I'm sure you've already thought of that, and what kind of sanitation processes would have to change.
All that's been removed.
A lot of it has been removed, and a lot of our counterparts in other communities, frankly speaking, they're still limiting locker room access and the ability for people to put their stuff in lockers. They're requesting them a lot to bring their own bags and to use it in there.
We have unprecedented liability too. I mean, we don't know what the liability would look like because we haven't had a concern of that yet, but we could have.
That's clearly a very fair point. I would yield to Andy on any question along those lines.
I have that question as well. If we could address legal liability, we're already seeing lawsuits right and left, and you know that those are going to increase, not decrease.
Yeah, I think and Andy can probably talk to this issue better. I know there was some effort on the part of the governor to try to take some liabilities out of the equation, find some protection. The harder part of this conversation is going to be is this. I'm not an expert. I think, Diane, you're probably as close to an expert on this as anybody in terms of the mysteries of the virus, what it does, what it doesn't do, what's going to take place, what's not going to take place. We have from the very beginning, Matt and I, as we've talked about this, and I know he's been conversing with his department heads, we've been saying is we're going to simply turn to the health department, and we're going to allow those experts to guide us through this crisis. I will tell you, I get a little frustrated, to be honest with you, how this thing has moved, how it's changed. But as I read the documents today, the issues about where we were supposed to do the disinfection in terms of our equipment and stuff is all gone. The restricting people who may be susceptible, it's gone. Now it's just a recommendation. I'm going to tell you right now, If there was 25 people and all of them walked up to and says, we're all part of the same family and we live in the same house, who's going to argue that? I'm not asking any of our employees. I surely wouldn't ask the police departments that says, okay, have every one of those people break out their ID card and let's find out if they all live in the same house, even though they may say they're related. We don't have no clue. So we have reached a junction, in my opinion, in this whole situation where we have to simply rely upon the individuals to simply make a choice, make a decision for themselves. We cannot enforce this. It's non-enforceable. And I'm not going to expect the people to say, because they got 5 people standing around that says all of them have to be this family, even though that's perfectly acceptable. We cannot check people to find out whether they're related or not related. It's just not what we do. And so all we can do is put the signs up. We try to encourage them to provide that protection, that distancing. But I'm going to be honest with you, no matter what you do, whether it be in our playgrounds or whatever, we cannot enforce this. The parents have to do it. The people have to do it. What we have to do is just simply do our best to bring that awareness to them. And so now the question on the table would be is that I'm sensing from this council, it doesn't look like the aquatic center is really a right choice for all the reasons that I think Matt defined it for us. But the question is going to be is that, do we feel, and it appears the city says, we could find the complex opened, follow the guidance we've been given by our health department, but they think maybe sometime in the middle of June or the 1st of July, they could open up within the criteria defined by the health department, the complex. Are we comfortable allowing then the city to meet that particular need, okay, if they can meet the provisions of the guidance that we've been given? Are you okay with that idea?
Can I ask Andy a question?
Yes.
Is there a disclaimer, a liability disclaimer that could be implemented?
It's possible, and
would
I would definitely.
Would it not hold any weight? I'm asking the question. I'm not.
Jan, I can look into it. And one thing, we do have governmental immunity on a lot of different in a lot of different areas. I'm not sure with this, and I could research it and see where it may fit there, but disclaimers we use for a lot of different activities too. So we could explore
I know a lot of places that I go that I have to sign a disclaimer if I'm going to participate in a risky behavior. Now, maybe that governmental immunity circumvents that, but I still would, I would feel more comfortable if people knew what their risk level, that they were opening themselves to a risk and that we were not going to be held liable for that. That to me would give me some sense of comfort.
Right, and where we don't have immunity, there it's a good thing to do where we can put that, we make them that they're aware and they're accepting that risk as they go forward, and they would hold the city harmless in case something happened. So I can definitely look into that.
Well, then let's do that then. I think Jan brings a great point up. She's basically says one of the weak links in this effort then is we just need some information. If Andy can provide that, then we can say to the city, go ahead and pursue going ahead with the plan to open up as soon as possible. But the one link we need to have understanding would be is what's our limitations. But here's another one for you, Matt, and you alluded to it, but we haven't talked about it. You still got lifeguards in the complex. You still got people who's going to be coming close and may have to come close to those individuals. What kind of PPE are we going to be able to provide to our employees to ensure they're safe in these situations?
Exactly.
Yes, we have to work through some of those issues. You're correct. They're medical professionals being lifeguards, and they need the proper PPE. We've provided other staff members with face masks and things like that, and we would also need to do so for those lifeguards as well.
Mouth to mouth, that would be a little different.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not different than necessarily our public safety people are encountering every day, but
correct. And yes, they are.
Yeah, they're
also
much more skilled.
Through the 63, we would have a short budget shortfall about $63,000 that we'd need to work through as well.
So can I assume then from the council that let's go ahead and let the city move in terms of opening up the complex to try to answer some of the questions we got? Go ahead.
Can I ask more question, Matt, on that $63,000 shortfall? What would it take in the way of increased fees to address that?
We could definitely crunch those numbers and get back. One of those things is a lot of the people that go there are actually the memberships that attend, and they've already paid for those memberships. So we'd have to take all that into consideration.
Understood, but the other thing of that is that they may have a supplemental fee. That has happened.
Yes,
in,
with like
in a
the
lot of
silver
cases
sneakers
because of it's an emergency. So if they, even if they have a membership, there may be a supplemental fee because of the pandemic, if they want that, that
sure,
be opened. And even if they do have a membership, I understand that, but right now they're not being able to use the facility at all.
Sure.
Are they willing to pay a supplemental fee, or are they willing to pay one-time fees? I don't know. Those are questions I would have to address that $63,000 shortfall, because otherwise it's on the backs of our citizens who don't use it at all.
We can reconvene. We can look into those fees. We can look into the legal and reconvene and talk about those things to see if we can staple everything down. If that's the way we want to move forward,
Right.
yes.
Diane had a comment. Diane.
I would like to wait before we make a decision to move forward until we get some of that information and those answers, because I believe that the risk to the staff is so important for us to take a look at. And because they are unprecedented, sometimes they talk about being the first person on and off a bandwagon is not such a good idea. I think that we need to see some experience a little bit before we do it, as we are also gathering some of this information, because safety is so important. Right now, this change of yellow, low risk, what it does is it puts the discipline and the onus on individual people, but we are still a city that assumes risk for our employees and for our citizens and those that are involved. And so even though that onus is put on them, we still have the responsibility to be, I think, a little more prepared with information before we move forward. I think that maybe we're maybe moving that direction possibly, but before we just jump in, I think we need few more answers to questions.
I think we're certainly moving forward, but with the idea in mind that we're not going to make a commitment to do it until we have that information.
I agree.
Definitely, because it's more than a monetary impact. It's it's a physical potential impact to the safety of individuals.
Yes, I appreciate those comments. I feel the same way.
One other thing I should mention to you, you talk about the fees, Jan, and you bring up some good point. May I make this point to you? City employees and their families all get into those complexes in those areas for free. Now, it hasn't ever been defined to me in terms over the years in terms of what that proportional number is. But as a right in terms of employment in Roy City, employees and their families have access to those facilities at no cost. If you left the Roy City as an employee in good standing, you have free access to those facilities. So when we start talking about how that fee should be distributed, maybe we should also address the issue that simply says many of our employees do not live in Roy.
That's true, but many do not use it. I've asked that question in the past.
And what's the number?
Times. And it's pretty minimal of who uses that out of the employee bank. I have asked that at the complex.
Mayor, you're both right, and it is a fairly minimal number, but what I will do is I will get with my staff and I'll email you guys all tomorrow what that number is.
Thank you.
Okay. Andy, I seen you were going to make a comment. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Mayor. I was talking a little bit, I want to go a little more on the liability issue, following up kind of what Diane was saying there for a minute. Sometimes when there can be lawsuits against us if there's a policy or a statewide policy and we can't enforce that. So that's one of the things when we let people into a facility like that, we could be in trouble if we don't make sure that safe distancing is required. They're okay while they're swimming, but when they're out of the swimming, that's got to be maintained. So, you know, there's a policing aspect that we've got to take into consideration here too.
Yeah, the challenge, you know, Andy, is better than anybody is that I don't know how to enforce that.
Right.
I don't know how to do that.
That's it. So all of this has got to factor into whatever decision we decide on.
Okay.
Because how do you know if it's a family member, you know? And they might say, it's my sister, it's my brother. I mean, I could see my grandkids saying that, even though it wasn't their sister or brother, just so they could hang out with their friends.
Exactly.
But, you know, a lot of the older people do go there. What if, you know, some of them don't even know they have the virus. And then they go lift weights or do something, and then they give it to everybody that, I don't know. It's just such a liability. Just, I don't know what the answer is.
Well, certainly there are a lot of cases that are asymptomatic, and so that creates an additional risk.
Yeah, Matt, do you have what you think you need to be able to move forward now?
Yes, I do have some other things that I needed to discuss if you'd like me to move forward too.
Please.
With the new recommendations, it was recommended that we open up the playgrounds. And so we are doing so, as well as the bathrooms. But people have to understand with those recommendations, when they changed to yellow, they also said that it wasn't needed to wash the playgrounds on a daily basis, or the bathrooms, it says you just need to wash them every morning. The old requirement was stating that you had to wash them every 2 hours. We don't have the manpower to be washing the playgrounds, and we have the parks to mow, and we haven't been adding the staff members that we have had in the past. And so we're going to be opening both of those, but we're going to be putting the signs just as well as like with the pickleball courts and the skate park. We're going to have some of those the same signs around the city to caution people, trying to educate them on it. The splash pad I mentioned with Councilmember Saxton. Did you have a question, Councilmember Saxton? Okay.
Does this, if we go this direction, doesn't it mean we get to open municipal once it's done?
Correct. Yeah, so what Councilmember Saxon's referring to is that we're doing kind of an athletic center over at Municipal Park. The cement's done. A lot of the things have been ordered and just need to be installed. So with the playgrounds being able to open, when we put that and install those things at Municipal Park, we'll be able to open those as well. The splash pad I mentioned earlier in the conversation that we're waiting to get more feedback from the health department. As you know, last time we canceled all spring sports and refunded those spring sports. We are going to be looking into the fall sports. It's actually late summer when they start, that we're going to be looking into doing those. And then outside field rentals, that's going to be your competition sports, the comp leagues, lacrosse and soccer. Those things we're going to be start taking reservations on some of those fields. But we asked the people that want to reserve those fields, any of these organizations, that they have to submit a plan in place for COVID and the restrictions that they're going to enforce onto the people coming into there, because we have to make sure that they're maintaining that social distancing and knowing that they're doing the right thing. So in order to reserve the fields, they have to comply to that. Pavilion rentals, we are going to start taking reservations now, but we're going to take those reservations for July on forward. We were having to cancel a lot of the reservations and feel it's unfair to be able to reserve a park that somebody already had prior to that. So we're going to take those reservations from July on forth. And then finally, the municipal building. As you know, we're going to start our summer work hours, but the municipal building is open to the public. Before, it was more by appointment only. We do have a ring doorbell up at the front. We ask people that when they come, that they ring that ring doorbell and they can get assistance. If they're just here to make a payment or something, we'll have them walk around and we can have that barrier up with the drive-through. They can drive through that, or they can walk through that. We've had quite a few people going up by foot, but they can we can offer a lot of the city services there. If they needed to come inside, we can also let them inside. We have an application on the phone that we can actually unlock the doors without going out there. And then we can also answer some of the simple questions and stuff over that Ring doorbell, but we are limiting the people inside. We'd like to have them stay outside so we can limit the people, if they're currently people busy in offices, that we could have them wait outside until they can come in. So we're limiting the staff or the people into the building. So
Hey,
anyway, just
Matt?
wanted to, yeah.
What about neighborhood dumpster program opening back up?
We're anticipating doing something in the fall. We've canceled a lot of those programs in the budget. I would like to also go, now that that question's been proposed, we've had 0 increases in the budget, but the city is increasing some of the fees that we will have to pay, including waste management. Waste management has that yearly increase that we're going to subsidize with our waste management, the solid waste fund balance. A lot of that's where we're paying for that dumpster program. And so if we put too much pressure on that dumpster program or put too much pressure on that fund, we would not be able to subsidize everything that we're doing. So we're looking to do something in the fall. Would not recommend, we're still holding off on the overtime throughout the city. All those dumpster programs require a lot of the staff members to work overtimes because they're on Saturdays.
What if you did it for a charge?
We could look into that if you want us to look into a charge. There is multiple facilities around here that do charge. And so I don't know if we would be very successful, and then we would still have the manpower there as well. There's a couple of private facilities and also Weber County. But if you guys would like us to, if you would like me to look into that, we can definitely look into that.
Let's hold on that one, Matt. Let's continue the conversation. We've got a budget workshop coming up next month. That might be something we could talk about because it'll happen in the fall, it'll happen in the next fiscal year.
Okay, and then finally, as you know, we have the budget. I've seen some questions by a couple of you. If you have any more questions, feel free. We would need to get some questions that we need to have answered in that workshop. That's what we're anticipating on doing in that workshop. So you could call me or email me or anything you would like to discuss there. Just beware that we need a little bit of time to prepare for that.
Well, you've got my questions.
Yes.
I've sent those to you. So hopefully you and Camille have those ready for us.
Yep.
Brian, you had a comment?
Well, I'll wait until there is that time.
We'll be talking about a lot of the budget questions and stuff in the workshop, but.
Well, I just one concern, and my hope would be if we do get the complex opened, and I understand there's other things that need to be reviewed, but my hope would really be that we not increase the cost of the seniors.
So how would you propose to pay for that, Brian?
Well, I think one, you increase the cost to those that are not Roy residents, but I think Roy seniors, you leave alone only because the COVID has hurt many, and you'd never think of coming back and saying, well, we've been giving you X, but you still get X, but it's going to cost you a little more. And I just, I guess I would hope that we could do it that way. If we can't, then maybe I can sell Kool-Aid on the corner. But my thing is I just didn't want the seniors to feel like, oh great, they're giving us the same vehicle, they're just charging us more money for it. Is that,
I understand and respect that, but the same thing, it's costing the city more money. So you're putting added revenue on the backs of every citizen.
Again, I just think this is unprecedented times and we have to come up with unprecedented ways. I look at our seniors, currently our seniors in high school. We have had to look at unprecedented ways to reinforce them, but we cannot do what we've always done and hope to get the same outcome. We can't. So I think we have to look creatively and say, you know, I don't want to make an emotional decision for a rep.
No, nor do I. I respect everyone's opinion and their advice and their expertise, but I just, between you and me and the gate, I would hope there'd be some way we could come up with those revenues. And I don't know. I've seen Matt pull rabbits out of the hat before. So what's one little tiny bunny?
Interesting. Okay, thank you, Matt. And thank you, Brian, for your comment. Okay, anything else, Matt, from the city manager report?
No, Travis is on the line. Did I miss anything with the recreation, Travis?
Matt, I thought you did a phenomenal job. I think you've done a great job through this entire unfortunate 3 months. So thank you.
Oh, and again, I think all of our department heads, we have to do a shout out to all of them. They have all been very proactive in their approaches to the many questions that have come on their plates that have never come there before. So thank you. And right now, of course, thank you to Parks, that the recreation, they are really having to step up right now because of the clicks they're walking on.
I agree. I'm so impressed with their website and all their emails and their imagination and all the things they're coming up for kids to do. Very impressive. They've gone way beyond the duties of their positions. I'm very impressed and I appreciate everything that they have also done.
Kudos to the employees. I see a lot of them out doing things that aren't in their job purview, but they're staying busy and doing things to help clean up and make the city a better place. So great job.
You mean when we see the Parks and Rec people out there reading meters, that's not in their job description?
That's one thing. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen people down at parks taking care of parks that traditionally don't. So they're doing a great job.
Signed up for it, but they're doing it.
I appreciate all your kind words and I will pass it along to the true heroes of the department. And that's our staff. They're like you said, they're being nothing short of remarkable, and I will pass along your kind words.
Thank
Perfect. You. Council, do you have any comments you'd like to share with the other council members?
Just one quick one. I'm just grateful to see that that Twisted Sugar is going to be a part of the Roy business community. They're popular and cookies are good for you. So I'm glad to have them.
Great comment, Brian. Okay, a couple of things if you don't mind.
I always like to hear about cookies.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Twisted Sugar, but are we getting a Sub-Zero or a, someone told me you were getting a Sub-Zero shop.
Haven't heard that one, Ann.
Yeah.
Haven't heard.
Yeah, someone told me that. I'm like, that's news to me. The only bad thing about Twisted Sugar is I've already put on enough weight during these times. That's just one more good thing to eat. But their cookies are delicious. So I'm excited. When is that going to be open?
They thought when I talked to them a couple of days ago, they said they'd have that done in 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. And they are very excited to be coming to Roy.
Are we still gonna have the buffet? I mean, buffets aren't real popular right now, but they're still planning on opening there.
Yes.
And the Rite Aid building. Maybe they should put a rule in there, no children can go to the buffet, only adults. So the adults get their food for their kids, and I don't know.
Well, and I think part of what they're going to do to combat the whole worry of COVID is, I think they're going to dish it up, hand you the plate.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And then you not be able to return with that same plate to the bar. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Anyway.
Because there's no way I was gonna go there.
It'll do a good business.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. Thank you.
Great comments. Let me just share a couple of things. Council members, you do have a hard copy of your budget document sitting in your box. Strongly recommend that you go through that. If you haven't read it electronically, there is a hard copy for you there. Read through it, mark it up, ask questions. We will be meeting in 2 weeks to go through the budget as part of a workshop. That's where we'll all try to get all the answers we need as we go through the approval process. The plan right now, Matt, unless I hear something else, is we'll have our workshop next budget meeting, next city council meeting as part of a workshop. And then the following 2 weeks after that, we will go for a council approval of the budget.
Yeah, we're looking the last council meeting in June for the approval. So we'll have that truth in taxation, right? And so we'll have, no, you're correct. That would be the next one.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yep.
And we're driven by policy. They have to have that decision by the end of June. So we have to make sure we're ready for that meeting.
Well,
If I heard,
meeting, Mayor, will
Go ahead.
that meeting be live instead of on Zoom?
well, we're going to talk about that here in a second. I'll give you the latest updates from the health department on that topic. Let me get to that one. I've got just a couple of lists here. If I heard the comment correctly, Matt and Travis, the summer sporting programs and to some extent the spring and the early summer sporting programs are basically canceled. You're now spinning up to do the late summer and fall sporting programs in Royce City. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. We're working toward that. So that would be a lot of the contact. That's when football starts. And so we have to make sure we comply with those regulations if they allow the contact sports. If not, we can offer like a late baseball program or something. But they've kind of eased up on the regulations that we can to work towards something to do something recreation at that time.
Would you do me a favor then? Would you, Travis, provide the council then the kinds of sports that we can expect to see in late summer and fall so we can notify the residents that the sporting program is going to reconvene?
Yeah, I'll let you know. We're currently teaching some summer classes, or we will begin teaching some summer classes. Historically, we would offer tackle football, flag football, volleyball, and girls basketball program during that stretch. Obviously, we'll pay attention and monitor the health department and see where we're at and make any adjustments. A lot like everything else, staff has got several contingency plans in place.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing over the years soccer, late soccer. Is there going to be a soccer in the fall?
Right now, the soccer organizations that we work with are definitely planning on having an August, mid to latter August start time.
Okay. Okay. I share that with you in large part because my fellow mayors look upon Royce City as being some of the best soccer fields and the best athletic fields that they never paid for. And so when we make a decision what we're going to do in Roy, it does affect other cities. You don't have to comment on that one, Travis. Let's talk just briefly about normal city council meetings. I asked the director of the Weber Morgan Health Department about when we can reconvene. The rule of engagement in terms of us going back to a city council meeting is simply this. 6 feet distance and no more than 50 people. So we can convene today a city council meeting as long as it meets that standard. Matt, I think you were doing some measurements on our current city council room. What are our options there?
So we did do some measurements on there. If we hold city council in there under the current circumstances, and I don't anticipate some of these things changing, is because they say you can open up to at least 50 people. The problem is the space with the 6-foot distancing. I don't see that going away. Right now, you would have about 10 to 14 people tops in the audience, and that would include the department director, staff. You would have 4 council members and then 1 person by Andy, myself, and Morgan. And so we'd be very, very limited on doing something live and in person with the city council chambers.
Yeah, they did mention that you could put it somewhere else, but that would eliminate Zooming and some other options that maybe would be afforded to us in a current situation. I will indicate to you, we have some important meetings coming up, and budget approval is an important meeting. If there is a meeting by which the public needs to have a right to have input, it would be the approval of the 2020 budget. I would very much like to have that in a public meeting where people can step up to the pulpit. But the problem with that is that it's going to be really difficult given the situation we're in. So I'm just going to let you know that that would be the target. That would be a late June. If the situation changed, I'd surely like to move to a public meeting on that one, but that's one that's going to require at least a little bit of thought in terms of how to do that, if it can be done at all. Otherwise, we stay on teleconference.
We could maybe use like the little theater at Roy High. Or
but again, then we limit Zoom possibilities that
Yeah, we'd have to come up with some way by which we could bring the residents who can't necessarily attend but want to listen to the discussion to be part of that. We'll try to look at some options, but there, as you will know, there are topics that we'd have come through the city council that really, really should be done in a public meeting. And that does create some challenges when we're as restricted as we are right now. So,
hey, Mayor, when I was in our sewer board meeting last week, most of the representatives on the sewer board are council members or mayors from other cities. And a lot of those reported that they were going back live first council meeting in January. Or
they're going to wait till then. In June?
Not January, June. Sorry. June.
Yeah, the restrictions being lifted under yellow gives us a lot of flexibility. We just got to see what we can and cannot do. So just be aware, we're not going to do this in a vacuum. We'll keep you posted, but it is about your protection. Even if that means 1 or 2 of you may need to basically come on teleconference and be part of a teleconference, we may consider that and just rotate that until we get back to something normal so we can fit everybody in. But I just want to let you know the health department did say we can now go back into our public meeting.
Well, we have a doctor on our staff. We could have her take all of our temperatures.
There you
Make
go.
sure we're healthy, then we could enter.
I like it. Okay. Council, that's all we've got.
Can I just
Please.
respond to Kevin Homer's conversation, though, that he has indicated in his emails that he has always appreciated the option to come in by teleconferencing. So, I mean, that if we move forward with that, that would always be an option rather than having a in-person conference. Now, I get that there are some people that do not have that teleconferencing capability. And so it would be very limited, though, and maybe it's by sign up or whatever.
And that's an excellent point. We'd have to look at our policy. Once we go back to normal situations, then there'll have to be some accommodations if we want the public to be able to, as you indicate, teleconference in. It's surely convenient. And to be honest with you, I've enjoyed it when the public has been engaged like that. But I would like to then, if the consensus of the council says, hey, we ought to look at that as being more of a standard rather than the exception as we go forward, then we really need to consider looking at changing the policy and allow that to happen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Council, anything else? Staff, anything else you want to talk about before we ask for adjournment? Okay. Not hearing anything. We appreciate your time. Obviously, this is interesting times for all of us. We appreciate the input and great job, Matt. I've always said, show me an organization that succeeds. I show you great leadership. Matt, there's no question. These last few months have been unprecedented, but more importantly, Roy City has not missed a beat. The fact of the matter is, you as the leader have really made some great moves, done some great things, and you've made this transition absolutely smooth. I know you didn't do that in a vacuum. I know you have great department heads who's helped you through this process, but I'm going to be honest with you. It happens because there's a great leader at the helm, and you've been doing that. So thank you. Appreciate you doing it. Keep us moving in the right direction as we go through this.
I agree, Matt. Shout out to Matt. He answers all my phone calls or calls me back. And sometimes I know he doesn't want to, but he does. And when the earthquake hit and we had the virus, and then he had his family and his parents, he still would respond. And he had a lot on his plate. And he's just a great leader. I couldn't do this job without him.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Be safe. We'll
Okay.
see you in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Later. I mean, Brian and Joe already left.